You know, there's a specific kind of silence that happens when you walk into a room where people think you don't belong. It's not a quiet silence, it's a loud one, heavy with judgment and eyes that scan you from your shoes to your hair, doing the math on your worth in about 3 seconds flat. That was the silence greeting Evelyn Carter as she pushed open the heavy glass doors of First Sovereign Bank in downtown Atlanta on a Tuesday morning, wearing a coat she'd bought in 1998 and carrying a leather handbag that had seen better decades, not days, but decades. At 73, Evelyn moved with the kind of slow, deliberate care that people often mistake for frailty, but if you looked close, really close, you'd see her back was straight as a steel rod, the posture of a woman who had buried a husband, raised 3 children on a military pension, and built an empire from the kitchen table while the world was busy looking the other way. She wasn't there to deposit a social security check, though that's exactly what Derek Hansen, the branch manager, assumed the moment he saw her from his glass-walled office. Derek was 35, wearing a suit that cost more than Evelyn's first car, with a haircut that screamed ambition and a smile that didn't reach his eyes, the kind of guy who thought customer service meant serving the customers who looked like they could buy the building. He watched Evelyn approach the counter, saw the teller, a nervous new girl named Sarah, glance at the withdrawal slip, and saw Sarah's face go pale, her eyes darting around like she'd just seen a ghost, or worse, a robbery in progress. Derek didn't wait for a signal, he just adjusted his tie, put on his handling a situation face, and strode out of his office, cutting the line, stepping right in front of Evelyn like she was invisible. "Is there a problem here, Sarah?" he asked, his voice booming just loud enough for the other customers, the businessmen in grey suits, the ladies in yoga pants, to turn and look. Sarah stammered, holding the slip with shaking hands. "Mr. Hansen, this slip, she wants to withdraw. It's a very large amount, sir, and I just..." Derek snatched the slip from her hand, his eyes scanning the number, and he actually laughed, a short, sharp bark of a laugh that sounded like a car door slamming. $2.8 million. He looked at Evelyn, really looked at her for the first time, taking in the worn cuffs of her coat, the scuffed comfortable shoes, the way she clutched that old bag. He said, dropping his voice to that condescending tone people use for toddlers or the confused elderly. "I think you've made a mistake with your zeros, or maybe you're in the wrong building entirely. The food bank is 3 blocks over. This is a financial institution for serious investors." Elias, the security guard, shifted uncomfortably by the door. He knew Evelyn. He'd seen her at the bus stop, but Derek was the boss, so Elias looked at his shoes. Evelyn didn't flinch, didn't blink, just looked Derek dead in the eye with a calmness that should have terrified him. "There is no mistake, young man," she said, her voice soft but scraping like sandpaper on stone. "I am here to withdraw $2.8 million from the Carter Trust for a scheduled transfer. Now if you'll please run the account number, we can all get on with our day." The Carter Trust. Derek scoffed, leaning his elbows on the counter, invading her space, smelling like aggressive cologne and arrogance. Let's be real for a second, okay? I don't know who put you up to this, or if you found an old checkbook in a dumpster, but fraud is a felony, and at your age, jail isn't a great retirement plan." He turned to the lobby, playing to his audience now. "Folks, sorry for the delay. We just have a little confusion here. Security is handling it." "I am not confused," Evelyn said, her grip on her purse tightening just a fraction. "And I am not leaving until I complete my transaction." "Okay, have it your way," Derek sighed, shaking his head like he was the victim here. "Elias, call the police. Tell them we have an attempted fraud in progress, elderly female, likely dementia or coerced, refusing to leave." He looked back at Evelyn, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "Last chance, Grandma. Walk out those doors and I forget I saw you, stay, and you leave in handcuffs." Now, you have to understand, Evelyn Carter could have ended this right there. She could have pulled out the items in her bag, she could have screamed, she could have demanded to see his boss, but she didn't. She realized in that moment that this wasn't just about her. It was about every time someone like her had been. Evelyn adjusted her coat, rubbed her sore wrist, and looked around the room at the staring faces. "Now," she said, her voice calm, "I believe I'll have a seat while we wait." 5 minutes. That's how long it took for the glass doors to fly open and Charles Morrison to storm in, flanked by 2 corporate attorneys, looking like an avenging angel in a 3-piece suit. He ignored Derek, ignored the police, and went straight to Evelyn, actually kneeling, on the floor beside her chair. "Evelyn," he said, taking her hands, his voice thick with genuine apology. "I am so sorry. Are you hurt?" "Just my pride, Charles," she said, patting his hand. And maybe my wrist. Charles stood up and turned to the room. The fury radiating off him was palpable. He pointed a finger at Derek, who was currently trying to merge with the drywall behind the counter. You, Charles said, his voice deadly quiet. Bring up her account. Now. On the big screen. Derek scrambled to the terminal, typing with shaking fingers. He cast the screen to the large monitor usually used for market updates. The numbers popped up, and a collective gasp went through the lobby. It wasn't just $2.8 million. The balance was $47 million. Evelyn Carter wasn't just a customer. She was a founding investor. She had been with the bank since 1978. Evelyn Carter, Charles announced, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, is the widow of James Carter, a Medal of Honor recipient and the man who owned the land this bank is built on. She comes in here once a year, always on this day, to withdraw funds for the Carter Scholarship, which has put 300 underprivileged kids through college. And you. He turned to Derek. You treated her like a criminal because she took the bus. I didn't know, Derek stammered, sweat dripping down his nose. She didn't look like money. Evelyn finished for him, standing up. She reached into her battered bag, the one Mitchell had dumped out, and pulled out a small, black velvet pouch. She opened it and slid out a card. It was solid metal, black titanium. The Centurion card. And I suppose this doesn't look like money either. She pulled out a photo, old and creased, showing her and her late husband shaking hands with the bank's founder. Or this. She walked up to Derek, and he shrank back. You judged me, she said, her voice ringing clear. You judged me based on the fabric of my coat and the color of my skin. You decided my value before I even opened my mouth. And that, young man, is why you will never be truly wealthy. Because you don't know the value of anything. She turned to Officer Mitchell. And you were so ready to hurt me. You didn't ask questions. You just saw a target. Mitchell looked down, shamed. I. Save it, she said. Charles, I'm closing my accounts. Evelyn, please, Charles pleaded. We can fix this. I'll fire him. I'll fire everyone. Oh, you'll fire him all right, she said. But that's not enough. I'm moving the Carter Trust to a bank that treats people like human beings, not credit scores. And I'm taking my $47 million with me. She didn't wait for a response. She picked up her bag, head held high, and walked toward the door. The lobby erupted into applause. Actual applause. The customers who had been whispering were now cheering. The fallout was biblical. By the time Evelyn got home to her roses and her tea, the video of the encounter, filmed by a teenager in the lobby, had 5 million views. #BankingWhileblack was trending globally. Derek Hansen wasn't just fired. He was blacklisted from the industry, his reputation in tatters, forced to move back in with his parents because he couldn't pay his mortgage. Officer Mitchell faced an internal review and was put on permanent desk duty, stripped of his badge and his power. But the real ending, the one that matters, happened 6 months later. Evelyn sued the bank, not for money, she had enough of that, but for change. She won a $62 million settlement, one of the largest discrimination payouts in state history. And what did she do with it? Did she buy a mansion? A fleet of cars? No. She bought the building. The actual bank building where she had been humiliated. She evicted the branch, gutted the inside, and reopened it as the James and Evelyn Carter Center for Financial Literacy. It's a place where kids from her neighborhood, kids who look like her, who take the bus, who wear second-hand coats, can come to learn about investing, about credit, about building wealth. She hired the teller, Sarah, the only one who had looked at her with kindness that day, to run the front desk. I went there last week to interview her. She was sitting in what used to be Derek's glass office, only now the door was wide open, and there were drawings from neighborhood kids on the walls. She poured me a cup of tea and looked out at the bustling center, filled with young people learning how to own their future. You know, she told me, smiling that soft, secret smile. Derek Hansen did me a favor. He thought he was shaming me. He thought he was putting me in my place. But all he did was remind me that my place is right here, opening doors for the people he tried to lock out. She took a sip of her tea. Money talks, honey. But dignity. Dignity roars. So, here's the question I want to leave you with today. We all make snap judgments. We see a uniform, we see a car, we see a zip code, and we think we know a person's story. But if Evelyn Carter walked into your workplace today, if she stood there in her faded coat and her comfortable shoes, would you have seen the millionaire? Or would you have seen the maid? It's an uncomfortable question, right? But it's one we need to answer. Because the next time you judge a book by its cover, you might just be missing out on the greatest story ever told. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever been judged by your appearance? Have you ever had your pretty woman moment where you got to prove everyone wrong? I want to hear your stories. And if you believe that respect shouldn't have a price tag, hit that like button and share this video. Let's remind the world that true worth isn't in what you wear, it's in who you are. Until next time, stay humble, stay kind, and never, ever underestimate the quiet ones.